So I'm going to start out with a plug for the nuclear proctologist, Dana. He's the guy I go listen to a few nights a week. Very interesting at 6 o'clock. And it's the most truth you can get on the internet. And I'm going to look at some of the other ridiculous articles that have been published as the propaganda campaign to make us relax is continuing to this day. So I'm going to look at some of the propaganda that our business-controlled news media tells us. This was right after the accident. 5 days later, you can see the steam is still coming up off the cooling pools or whatever water was in there, it's still bubbling. And so that radiation came out, all those MOX fuels, all the 20 years of used control elements that created the power to boil the water, which no one really cares about. They want weapons materials. The electricity is just a byproduct. And this talks about a handful stayed on the job. So there were hundreds of workers there. They all evacuated because they were smarter. The official said his friend told him that he was not afraid to die. That was his job. Well, that's really nice because that's what the hierarchy wants, is people that are really professional and are willing to throw their lives away to help their company make money. Japan official raised the legal limit on radiation for the workers from 100 millisieverts to 250. Well, this is 6 days after the accident, or 5 days, and they've already started to raise the amount you can safely be exposed to, which is ridiculous. There's no safe amount of radiation to be exposed to. So this was an early article that says people are, and then they had the Fukushima 50 who all died because they went in there and tried to do something, sprayed water on it. So that was the initial lies we got there. But look at that picture. That's all you got to look at right there to know you're in trouble. It's radioactive. So I went in and put in CBS Fukushima disaster, and this is from 2015, which is not the most recent of days, but it does say near site of Fukushima disaster. Birds still in peril. Well, they sure are. 4 years after the Fukushima disaster, birds are becoming a rarity around the damaged nuclear site. So a study in the Journal of Ornithology found that half the populations of 57 bird species had suffered declines. Studies over 3 years at 400 sites found that the numbers have continued to decline over time, even as radiation threat drops. Well, the radiation threat is there for as long as humans exist, basically. So I don't. And they always talk about it dropping because they pick the isotopes that are only live so long and they're gone in 3 weeks or whatever. But this is 4 years, and they're still saying it's going to drop a little bit. Well, that's nice. So this is some reporting that's true here, I must say. They did say the bird populations are dropping, but I'm sure if I read more, everything will be fine. And once again in this article, there's nothing about bioaccumulation. The little atoms of radiation, whatever ones they are, get into bugs or whatever vegetation the birds eat, and then it bioaccumulates in their bodies. And then it gets in their sperm and eggs, and they can't reproduce, and if they don't die first. So this is a somewhat interesting article from CBS. It says there is a problem, but it's birds. It's not going to affect you. It's birds. Don't worry. So I just went in and randomly picked out an article from Fukushima radiation, and it's the USA Today, which is one of the biggest rag newspapers in the country. I think the most reliable thing about this is it has a weather map every day. That's a cartoon so people can understand it. Should we be worried about Fukushima radiation? Question mark. Well, there shouldn't be any question mark here. Yes, you should be worried about it. to put in context, if we were to swim every day for 6 hours a day in those waters for a year, that additional radiation from the cesium from Japan is 1,000 times smaller than one dental X-ray. Well, guess what? A dental X-ray is not good for you either. It's radiation. So, and then they pick cesium-134. There's literally thousands of radioisotopes that are produced in this nuclear reaction stuff, and they always talk about just a few of them that have half-lives of months or years or days. Well, actually, a lot of them have half-lives of hundreds of thousands of years. So should we be worried about radiation? Yes, as long as we're alive anyway. So they say this part that the water is safe to swim in, but the word bioaccumulation does not exist for this newspaper, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they've ever written it when it has to do with radiation and bioaccumulation, because the radiation is coming out here. It's still coming out here at 300 tons a day of water is getting flushed by underground or sprayed on these melted reactors. So that's all going in the water. Well, that's been going on since 2011. The ocean circulation, I think, takes 7 years. So the water that was here 7 years ago is back, getting more radiation, taking it out into the food chain of the ocean. So then the algae absorbs it, and the fish that gnaw on the algae, or the barnacles, or the bigger fish that eat the fish, or the whales that eat baleen, or they have baleen to filter out the shrimp, if there's any shrimp left. The shrimp are contaminated. So the whole ocean is contaminated, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But this article is more cover up, nothing to worry about, take it easy, go to work, change the oil in your car, whatever, because you can't do anything about it anyway, so don't worry about it. Well, I guess that's partially true. But should we be worried about Fukushima radiation? The answer is yes. The rag newspaper. Just can't believe them. Okay, I put in the Japan Times and was trying to get some more recent information. Here's the Japan Times. And I don't see, oh, there it is, February 3rd. I guess this is when this article was made. There's good, they have a year and a date. Sometimes you can't find that on these things. So this is talking about really high radiation inside the plant itself. And they say 530 sieverts per hour. That's the highest they've ever measured. This was, a year ago or so or more. So, and then they talk about a person could die from even brief exposure. Brief exposure. Okay, what does that mean? I keep seeing this in lots of articles. A millionth of a second out of a minute is very brief. A week out of 100 years is very brief. So what do they mean? Tenth of a second and you're dead? It's just always information that's questionable. And then the 530 sieverts was here. Apparently they had these wonderful workers, not from college, graduates, stuff the test equipment in here, and then they measured it here. That's outside the reactor. Imagine what it is in here, or where it's melted down below. It's gone through, it's down in the groundwater, going into the ocean. So the 530 is even a questionable measurement. Maybe the instrument just blew up there. I didn't investigate that much. So I guess the closer you get to Japan, you get a little more information, because there's so many more people there that want to know about it, I'm assuming. Because in, I don't know, Roxbury, New York, people don't really care. So you read a lot of things that say radiation is natural, it's background radiation, it's always been here. But the thing about, that's like carbon-14 decay. So when the radioactive isotopes decay, they are able to determine how old that particular bone is, or that how long ago the wood was buried in the bog, things like that. So that's natural radiation. But the radiation from Fukushima is not natural. The easiest way to consider it is 1 becquerel. because all the other measurements get hard to understand. So 1 becquerel is 1 disintegration a second. So if you're living on land that is not radiated, and then it has 200,000 becquerels per cubic meter, or however they measure it, then you don't want to be there, and it's not natural. So all this natural talk is just silliness, and the people drinking sake and saying it's safe, all that stuff, it's just more lies. So I'll just remember 1 becquerel is 1 disintegration a second, and that's what I'm going to try and do. So I'm looking at a site with a little more truth in it than all the horrible newspaper rags that are printed in the United States. This one's called Running Because I Can't Fly, and that was a quote from a soldier who was removing himself from a battle in the Civil War, which I always thought was a good answer to the general who wanted him to turn around and go get shot. Fukushima update, December 1st, 2018. 18,176.1 Hiroshima bombs. Now, somehow they've calculated the amount of fuel that was released into the atmosphere and the water, and it's still going on. And that sounds like a reasonable estimate to me. I mean, we're all being irradiated big time. 3 reactors melted. There are 1,946, which sounds like a true figure to me. I always say thousands, but radioactive isotopes according to the Oak Ridge Nuclear Weapons Lab. Well, they're the people that would know. The Nuclear Weapons Lab. That's why we make all this radioactive material for nuclear weapons. It's not really for electricity. And the aircraft carrier was contaminated. That was one of the first things that happened. They lied about. And now there's sailors dying from that radiation exposure, so they'll get, I guess the relatives get $50,000 for their death. Although it's not combat related, so why would they get any benefits? This is harmless radiation. Anyway, so here there is some truth out there. This is an interesting one. Running because I can't fly. He's got all kinds of good information here. It all seems truthful to me, and it would be a good site to go look at if you're interested in this stuff.